I love about this show. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, Tennessee versus Purdue in the TransPerfect Music City Bowl from
You should have said a trigger warning. You should have
Nissan
issued one. Should have issued
trigger warning from Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, Purdue won this one 48-45 in overtime. Nobody got the point. Matt, I know. I'm sorry. As a matter of fact, I have thoughts, but they're not going to be as
No,
detailed.
no,
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 they're not going to be
no.
as detailed as yours. I'd rather just listen to you and what your thoughts are.
Well,
For those of you who can't see,
let's.
Matt is pointing at hell behind him once more.
Yes, I am, because that is exactly where we ended up as a result of this game. And I'm being hyperbolic. It wasn't. I don't want to call it a bad loss, because I mean this is a Purdue team that stood out. They beat oh crap, I forget, Michigan State, I think it was, during the regular season. They had a couple of wins in the quality wins. So I mean this wasn't a Purdue team. It wasn't like we lost like some 2-10 team or something. But this game gave me palpitations. Tennessee came out in the first quarter like they usually do, and just absolutely dominated, put up 21 points in the first quarter. I sat back and I just was like, all right, good. We're going to roll out of here like 52-16 or something. That'd be great. But
right.
Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. After that, Purdue decided to get their act together. And so we went into the half down by 2 points. So it was 21-23 at the half. And so we just looked bad on defense. We made a couple of really crucial defensive mistakes. There was one play where I can't remember the kid's name for Purdue. He caught a ball and he had like 4 Tennessee players around him and he almost got tackled, but the guys gave up on the play and then he took off down the sideline. That was in the fourth quarter near the end. And it was just a lot of back and forth. I mean, Tennessee got 666 yards total offense in this game, but they also gave up 627 total yards offense.
It's not funny that you said you're in hell and it's 666.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. We had 288 yards rushing in this game, 378 yards in the air. We only had 1 turnover to produce 3. This was a game I feel like we should have won, and we should have won by a wide margin. But the problem is just our defense in the second half could not stop their pass game. I don't know why. I don't know what was going on. I'll come back to the officials in just a second. But
okay, I was going to say, are we?
Oh, don't worry, we're going to get there. I felt like this was a game we should have won. Unfortunately, it went to overtime. And I think everybody is aware of what happened in overtime. I'll come back to that when we talk about the officials. But again, there were several instances in this game, and I want to be very, very, very clear about this. And Vol Twitter's probably going to get mad at me if they ever hear that we say this. Tennessee lost this game. Tennessee had multiple opportunities to win this thing before we got to overtime, and we didn't capitalize on those opportunities. There were several instances where Hendon Hooker threw deep balls when he didn't need to throw deep balls. He only needed like 5 or 10 yards. He's throwing 20-yard bombs. Again, I'm going to chalk that up to inexperience. I'm going to chalk it up to coaching, that he did it 3 straight times. But I digress. There were a couple other instances where we should have had this game shot down before in the fourth quarter. That wasn't the case. So for the overtime starts, Tennessee gets the ball. Obviously, we lost the toss because that's Tennessee's luck for you. We had to go first. We get 2 fourth down. We make our first 4th down conversion. Coach got super aggressive. We go for it on 4th and 1, which, by the way, I loved that call. There are a lot of people that were really upset with that call, but I appreciated Josh Heupel's aggressiveness, because I feel like he knew that they needed to put this thing away. And I think he was absolutely right. And I really wish that had happened. So they do a little run, punches in the end zone, we score. Oh, wait. No, he didn't, because the officials called the play dead and said his forward progress was stopped. Now, let's talk about the officials, shall we? Like I said, and I was very clear with this, Tennessee lost this game. There were too many instances where Tennessee should have won the game. However, this was one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen in my freaking life. The pass interference calls on the outside, there were not just 1, not just 2. There were 3 separate pass interference calls that were called on Tennessee that weren't pass interference. They weren't. If you wanted to call them pass interference, then you should have called pass interference when somebody grabbed Cedric Tillman's jersey and they pulled it for 4 yards. They didn't call that one, though. Not to mention that I've never in my life seen a running back still churning his feet get called down by forward progress was stopped when he punches the ball through into the end zone over the goal line. That was the worst call I've ever seen in my life. That officiating crew was terrible. Awful.
What conference were they from?
ACC.
Yeah.
Did y'all know this is the same group, the same officiating crew, where that whole Duke, I think it was Duke, North Carolina controversy that happened earlier in the season? It was the same freaking crew. So, track records there, the evidence on the field's there. The officials played a part in this. And one of the Tennessee players tweeted later that, it's hard to beat. What was it? It was 11 versus 18, I think. 7 officials, obviously. They're not wrong. And every major outlet that you look at, for the most part, has said that was a touchdown. And I'm pretty sure that if Tennessee's given that touchdown, they win that ball game. Because Purdue was not able to move the ball much in that first overtime. It's the reason why they had to settle for 3. So it is what it is. I was really upset about it the day of. If we'd recorded the podcast that night, you probably would have had to have bleeped every word I said. Because I was
man, we're just getting the E rating.
I was hot to trot that night. I think I blew up y'all's phones with all kinds of stuff.
Oh, Wes and I texted each other separately, and we're like, we just don't say anything to Matt. I was like, I think it's best to just leave it alone.
You could have said anything. I wouldn't have got mad. I think at one point I tweeted out, "Someone throw the effing mustard." I was.
We wanted to check on you, but then we knew the answer to our question.
I was hot to trot. So yeah, this game. It was a great game. It was a fantastic game. A lot of back and forth. I feel like if our defense had played just a smidge bit better, we probably would have won this game by at least 2 touchdowns, but it just wasn't meant to be. So we just keep going.
Right.
I think the ACC refs saw the SEC refs and they're like, hold my beer.
That's probably what happened, much to my chagrin.
Yeah. This is one of those where if you're not a fan of either, it's a spectacular game to watch. But if you're a fan, it's excruciating. Jesse, your thoughts on it?
Just to bring in maybe a little happiness, the Vols set a single season record with 511 points, topping the 484 scored in 12 games in 1993. So congrats there. Yeah. They also brought out a record crowd of 69,489, topping the previous mark of 69,143 set in 2010 when they played the bowl there last time.
Wow.
I know.
By the way, cool. I do want to point out that was probably the worst conditioned field I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know who's running Nissan Stadium, but they need to really reevaluate what they're doing with their field, because that thing was slippery and it looked like crap.
But I think the only thing to say really about Purdue is their coach came out and said that they had a lot of wide receivers and they were able to tap into that depth and spread the ball around. And obviously their quarterback O'Connell was really able to connect with those guys. You saw it. They put up 627 yards or total offense, but a lot of that being in the air. So yeah, Purdue, we joke about it. And I always say Purdue, and of course they're a joke in the Big Ten as well, but they are the one team that can trip people up. You mentioned Michigan State. So it is one of those games that you have to be careful, even when you're playing out of conference. But yeah, it was a cool game as someone who's not a fan of either, but definitely felt for the Vols after watching that call. But I 100% agree with Matt. I think anybody, when you have a game that is scoring that high on both sides, you can't just blame one call for losing it. You definitely have to look at the entire performance and really gather what you can, and clearly defense was lacking there. So agree with that.
I wasn't surprised.
We're all in agreement that was a touchdown, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I don't know.
Wes!
I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say yes. Hold on, let me get there.
We talked about Wes and I talked about it. We went back and forth for a bit.
I mean, I watched that replay like 20 times just because I wasn't sure.
Those that can't see, Matt's gone.
Matt is gone. Yeah. All I'm looking at is flaming bodies in hell. Yes. Anyway, that was a lot of points. I wasn't shocked. So I figured Tennessee was going to score a lot, put up a lot of yards, put up a lot of points. I was not shocked by that. I was shocked that Purdue was able to do the same. And Matt, you said the same in more colorful language during the game about Tennessee's defense. And I was honestly really surprised at that. Kudos to Purdue for showing up, because honestly, they came into this game struggling with some big injuries, specifically the All-American defensive end and wide receiver. Brock Thompson, who needs off-season surgery on both his knees, apparently filled in at wide receiver and got 7 catches for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns. So honestly, don't know how dude did that, needing that, but I don't know. Maybe he had some shots of the good stuff in his knees. I don't know. But anyway,
He'll probably never play football again.
I was going to say, or yeah, just complete reconstruction of those knees in the off season. Okay. So the replay, I watched that thing. I don't know how many times. And I completely agree. Oh, Matt's gone. He didn't,
goodbye.
He didn't just like get up from his screen. He actually left the meeting. Here's
continue. I'm listening. I could see both ways. I'm saying I think it's a touchdown because if I were a Tennessee fan, or if this were my team,
absolutely,
I'd be advocating for it.
Of course,
I can see why some people would say it's not.
100%. If I was a Tennessee fan, I would be angry at that call, because I'd say exactly what Matt said. Yes, his legs were still churning. He still was moving. But then, so when I was watching it, you can see, and I understand that referees are not referees are not robots. So I understand that, because if I was looking at the replay, I see him running in from the sidelines like he's going to spot it short, and I don't even know that he'd blown the whistle yet at that point.
Nope, there wasn't a whistle.
Right, you can see him running in, and then the whistle comes later. So I don't know if he just tried to blow the whistle and just got short of breath, or I don't know, what have you, but it did look like he was kind of running in already. I understand why they wanted to mark him short, because his momentum had been stopped. However, he wasn't down. His knee wasn't technically down. It's one of those deals where it's just like, gosh, I see how it could have gone both ways and so close. Matt, if I was in your shoes, I would be very angry about that. If I was on Purdue's side, I would be like, oh yeah, it's a great call, whatever. So, I just
don't see how you can make that call in that sort of situation in an overtime game, how you're going to call that play dead.
Right.
Like even an outside effort here. It's just
I think in that situation, I would rather see the ref just let a play go.
Right.
I agree.
But that's what replay's for. Replay's intended to where you let the play, and then if you need to go back and reverse it, then you go back and reverse it. You don't just Zebra should have kept it in his pocket there, because that was
right. Yeah. No. I agree with you on that one. Okay.